Right. Thank you so much, Prof, for making time to talk to KU TV. Now first, from academia to activism, now politics. What makes you think you're the best man for the job?
First of all, I'm not just ready by vision. I'm also ready by heart, but also by profession. You talked about my continuum. From class, research shows the most trusted people in the world are teachers. So between teachers and politicians, whom do you trust? And we're talking about trust. You've seen me in class. You've seen me on the streets in activism. You've also seen me in court advocating for what Kenyans want. But now we don't aim at advocacy. Now we need leadership. And by this, I have done certain things to show that I can actually do that. There's what we call manifestation. I've manifested with the trust in classroom, with the trust in the street, trust in the courts, but also being an economist. Many Kenyans may not know that during the global financial crisis, their son was picked by European Central Bank to go and turn around Greece when it was sinking, turn around Italy, turn around Spain, turn around Portugal. And it is my economic medicine that treated the global financial crisis in the south of Europe. And that's why in Europe, European Central Bank, they rate me as one of the most decorated economists, not by writing, not by talking, but a hard-nosed economist who turned around the pigs. Pigs is P, Portugal, I, Italy, I, Ireland, G, Greece, and Spain. Tell me of any other person whom we are thinking can be alternative, whether they have turned around an economy of any country, any county, any sub-county, any ward, or just any village. But this is your son, the son of Kenya, Kenyan made, the Kenyan project, because I am a Kenyan project. I've gone to Kenyan schools. I've lived in Kenya, grew up in Kibra, grew up in Magongo, Mombasa, and that one has helped the world turn around. Why not do it at home? That's the main question.
All right. And Prof, many people will argue that you lack the political experience, that you have not really earned your place in Kenyan politics. For those who might question your credibility when it comes to matters politics, what message do you have for them?
That is a very good question, Evans. Kenya is going through a third liberation. The third liberation is economic, not political. Our fathers fought for independence, so there is no need of fighting for independence now. The second liberation was political and democratic liberation. It's being done by our fathers. That is the Railas, that is the Kibakis. You can name those people. But now we are going through economic liberation. And who is the most qualified economist to turn around the economy? Because the Kenyan problem now is not political. The Kenyan problem now is economic. What has made Singapore what it is? They did not choose the most qualified politician, they chose the most qualified economist. And when we are matching the economic problem with economic solution, then who is more qualified? Tell me, look at my other competitors, worthy competitors that is. Look at their background, look at whether they understand economics. And the Kenyan problem, which is economic, can be solved by an economist. And the leading economist in this country, in Africa, here it is before you, that's Fred Ogola. And I've told you before, it's not something I'm beginning to do experiment with Kenya. I have done it in Europe, more complex economy. Why not Kenya, where I grew up, where I understand it more, even from anthropological point of view? I believe that the most qualified person to run the Kenyan government is not the most qualified politician, because they only give you a political dose. They won't give you economic solution. They'll go back to history. I even asking Kenya, let us mobilize around an economic solution. Because Einstein argues that you can't use the same people or the same tools that has created a problem to solve the problem. But you have to use new tools. So which is the new tool? Which is the new people? And that is why Fred Ogola presents himself to you. And I'm saying, if you appoint me, I will not disappoint you.
And we'll talk about the economy. But in your thinking, what is the biggest challenge facing Kenya right now? What is so wrong about the current leadership that you feel it needs change right now?
First and foremost, the Kenyan problem are mainly four, and I'll say that they're economic problems. One, we have high debt. Two, we have very high inflation that makes cost of living become unbearable. Three, there's very high interest rate, whereby our interest rate is 24%. China is 2.9%. How do you compete with the Chinese in the global economy when they produce by borrowing at 2.9%, when for you borrow at 24%? The other problem we are talking about is the purchasing power of the Kenyan shilling. 1,000 bob, when we grew up, when a man or a woman walks with 1,000 bob, they felt very strong. How strong do you feel with 1,000 bob in your hands at the moment? It just doesn't work. But all these things is compounded by what I call high level of youth unemployment, which is 60% youth unemployment. These problems need to be fixed. And that's what I'm telling you. Fred Ogola, is the man with the silver bullet to solve the Kenyan problem with one silver bullet. The current government has four problems that, human speaking, no one should have. How can the same man have high debt? The same man have what's called pending bills. The same man is overtaxing people to generate higher revenue. And the same man is selling the Kenyan asset. I equalize this man to a husband who has been added a salary in a place of work. He is borrowing money. He is not paying house help. He is not paying anybody. All suppliers are not being paid. At the same time, he's selling television. He's selling microwave. He's selling sofa sets. How can this man be a man which is reasonable? So that is the kind of leadership we have. Because taxes have been increased, collecting more money. Debt is being increased by borrowing more. The same man is selling Kenya Pipeline. He's selling Safaricom. And the same man has pending bills to all suppliers, whether it's education sector, whether it's health sector. He pays nobody and only pays himself. And lastly, the current head of state lives in a 740-acre piece of land. That's State House, Nairobi. Only. We are not counting the other houses in other countries like Mombasa, Kisumu, and the rest. One State House, Nairobi, is 740 acres of land, while Kenyans are squatters, while Kenyans have no food. White House is 8 acres. How can you move from 740-acre piece of land to go borrow money from somebody who is living in an 8-acre piece of land? It does not add up. So the current leadership don't understand the Kenyan problem. If they do understand, they don't understand the solution. So either they don't understand the problem or the solution or both. But as Fred Ogola, I have done a deep understanding. I grew up in Kibra. We're 11 kids. We slept without food. But education is what brought me here. And I believe that with that understanding of moving from Kibra to where I am, I understand the Kenyan journey of a normal Kenyan human being, a normal Kenyan young youth, a normal Kenyan girl, and a normal Kenyan parent, because I saw my mother selling tomatoes and onions in Kibra to educate us. I saw my father as a catechist in St. Michael's Otiende, teaching people values. And the same values that are very strong that my father passed on to me through catechism and my Catholic faith are the same values we need, which is the opposite of the current administration.
Okay. We've talked about the high taxation, for example, how bad the economy is doing. But talk to me about your plan to turn around the economy. How do you, propose to turn around the economy that is now faced with a lot of taxation, high debts? How do you propose to turn around that, the very big figure that we witness in the country?
With the silver bullet, which are called 100,000 jobs per county, will give us 4.7 million jobs nationally. When that happens, we solve one problem, taxation. When you bring 7.4 million taxpayers to the tax bracket, you lower the tax burden on Kenyans because it will be shared. So that's one, solving the issue of high taxation. Secondly, when you have people producing, the supply will outweigh the demand. So inflation goes down immediately, and the Kenya shilling strengthens. And when you strengthen the Kenya shillings, you also solve the debt problem. Because every time the Kenya shillings appreciate by 1 shilling to a dollar, it's like we have paid 1 billion to the debt stock without paying any money.
But Prof,
and even
when you look at now talking about the Kenyan currency, from the year 2022 up to now, there is a steady improvement in terms of Kenyan currency, which is right now we can say 3 years down the line until now, there is quite a big margin in terms of improvement. So in that sector, do you think probably the government has done enough to make sure that they stabilize their currency?
Evans, there are some improvements that happen without you doing anything. Mm-hmm. You see, when you go to a school where kids are not so bright, by not being so bright, you can be number one. But let me explain to you why you are talking about improvement. Do you know one thing the Kenyan government has done to bring the improvement? Because we have to talk about the issue of cause effect. What have they done? Nothing. But what has the improvement taking place? The improvement has taken place because the dollar has depreciated for the last 4 years by an average of 15%. Go and check that data yourself. Mm-hmm. And if that is the case, have you seen the Kenya shillings appreciate against the Uganda shillings, Tanzanian shillings, Rwandese franc? How come those currencies appreciate against Kenya shillings, while the Kenya shillings can only appreciate against the dollar? It simply means that we are mismanaging the economy. You even talk about the issue of fuel. The fuel is more expensive in Kenya than the region, while they're using our road network to do the fuel. So what I'm trying to say is that they are doing nothing about it, but there's a silver bullet on how to solve the problem by putting people to work. And I want to tell you with all honesty, when you see these guys thinking they can construct the railway, they can do the SGR, they can do the road, and they can do the housing, that is a non-priority. The real infrastructure, Evans, is to put people to work. That's the real infrastructure. Go to Europe, go to the Middle East, go to the Asian tigers. When people are not working, there's no infrastructure. And I want to separate these terms, the difference between infrastructure and superstructure. Mm-hmm. Superstructure is the thinking that makes you develop what? Infrastructure. If you build a big house, which is infrastructure, but you don't know whether people will be renting that house, or there will be food inside there, or will be someone opening an office inside there, there is no thinking. But by thinking that if I build a 10-storied building, there will be X number of people renting here to offer this and these services, then you don't start by thinking about infrastructure as an end in itself. You have to think about what will that infrastructure do before you build the infrastructure. No one goes to build a house to own a house, but they look about the living, what they want to do inside the house. So let me give an example. Building housing is giving the end user, but not thinking about production. Because tell me, once you own a house, who else do you pass that house to? Nobody. But if you create jobs through large-scale agricultural production in the county level, what will happen is that somebody can sell avocado, somebody can sell those inputs, isn't it? Somebody can brand them, somebody can transport them, somebody can package them. But a house is the end user. You can't create a value chain with a house. But if you create production, primary production, when you go to secondary production, then you go to tertiary production, you are creating a value chain where this person creates jobs for the next. That's I'm telling you, the cause of causes, if you like Latin, causa causarum, is to do large-scale primary production to lead to secondary, then tertiary. But these guys do infrastructure because that is where corruption actually comes easy. You get money from somebody, you get kickbacks, you overprice this, what they call infrastructure, you make your money, then you move. That's not how it works.
All right. Now, let's tackle one of the most, the elephant in the room. When you talk about now high taxation, which you have elaborate in quite in-depth analysis, Let's talk about the job creation, and of course, in line with that, the high taxation, and how would your administration looks like should you clinch power in the 10th of August 2027. How will your administration be different from what we have right now? What are some of the tax proposals that you will bring forward to make sure that you give the struggling Kenyans relief from high taxation, of course, creation of jobs, and in line with your greater vision?
First of all, it starts by saying how my leadership will be different from theirs. First of all, I'm not a product of a system. The first president of Kenya was a product of a system. The second president was a product of the system. The third, product of the system. The fourth was a product of the system. And the fifth one, the product of the system. So whom do they work for? They work for the system. But Fred Ogola wants to be the Kenyan project. And the Kenyan project will work for who? Will work for Kenyans. And that's why I do not need anybody's permission to run. Here you hear someone says, go visit so-and-so to ask whether you should run. I will not visit anybody to ask them to run. I'll ask Kenyans who are listening to me, do you give me permission to run? If they say yes, there's a way to do that. I'll put up a proposal to them, the register supporters, and sign and say, we are taking Fred Ogola as our project. With that matter, I'll focus on listening to Kenyans. I'll listen to them, do what they want. So it's going to have a listening government, a government that can change its mind. We have a government that never changes their mind. Look at taxation. When they say they're taxing you finance bill, they even bring the police. When they say they are building Ebola, whatever it is, they bring the police and military. How can you be given power through a ballot from a citizen, then for you, when you rule, you bring a bullet? Ballot cannot be substituted by bullet. So Fred Ogola will rule by what the ballot says, not what the bullet wants to say. So that's a leadership, what I call a paradigm shift in leadership. But most importantly, why do we have high taxation? It starts by saying the expenditure of government. When Uhuru Kenyatta left the government, the budget was 3.1 trillion. Now Ruto is proposing in 2026 a budget of 4.92 trillion. That is 63% increase in government expenditure. Don't call it budget, expenditure, isn't it? While revenue is growing at 4.8. Tell me anywhere in the world, if you're running any business, even if it's a kiosk, even if it's a restaurant, if it's an hotel, or boda, or anything you're running, where your revenue is growing at 4.8 and your expenditure is growing at 63%. So they are running a government that does not make sense. So my work will be, everything will be pegged to GDP. You won't tell me, oh, salaries are being increased for MPs, senators, governors. No. You cannot have a salary that the revenue cannot contain. You must live within your means. So once we agree to live within our means, it will work. Let me tell you how this government operates. As if we go to a restaurant, we normal Kenyans are ordering githeri, we are ordering ugali and sukuma, and we are eating, while for them they are sitting on their table, giving a 6-star meal. They are ordering, I don't know how many chicken, how many fish, how many beef, but they send the bill to the person eating githeri. So these people are eating in State House, dining in State House. State House of Kenya is the largest restaurant in the world. Mark my word, go to the budget. 17.5 billion shillings, 65% goes to food. Look at your house, how much do you spend on food? So they are eating, making in State House, in Parliament, in all those big offices, but sending the bill to Mwananchi who is sleeping hungry. So taxation must be based on economic productivity, not on somebody's greed and needs. So that, having said and done, if you lower expenditure in Kenya on these fuel guzzlers that we have, unnecessary expenditure, trees which don't make sense, benchmarking which never marks anything, you cut that expenditure to something sizable enough. The other thing is we have to lower the cost of energy so that Kenya can produce. We've done research and found out that you can lower the cost of energy by 45% of Power. Kenya Power can be lowered of 45%. I even met somebody in Machakos who work for Kenya Power who tells me it can actually go by 50%. And the government has done research. If you go to the president's office, they did research and discovered because of leakages, wastages, and corruption, you can lower Kenya Power cost by 30%. When our cost of power goes down, the economy can breathe and grow. So there are so many ways to look at it. Lastly, why do you tax people? Like, for example, fuel. There are 10 taxes and levies which are not global. How can one product be taxed 10 times? Go to fuel development levy, go to railway levy, go to fuel adulteration levy. You count all of them. Import duty, a customs duty. They become too expensive to the point that if you want to know how we are badly run, somebody can import eggs from Uganda, pass through Masaka, they pass through Kampala, they pass through Jinja, they pass through Busia border, they arrive in Kenya, and they are cheaper than eggs produced in Kenya. Don't compare with the US, don't compare with China, just Uganda. If you ask the guys, they'll tell you. Why? Because they are imposing taxes on everything. Until eggs, which every household in Kenya consumes, is more expensive produced in Kenya than abroad. All right. So what we are trying to say, our taxation should allow more production, should allow more trade, should encourage ease of doing business. And worst of all, Kenya is the worst on ease of doing business in Africa. Kenya is only better than South Sudan. How can we get foreign direct investment in this country if we are overtaxing? So we are shooting ourselves on the same foot. Okay. Now, talking about still matters taxation. Well, the reason that is according to the government, the reason of high taxation is because, first of all, there is a debt that they want to service. But let me not dwell on the debt services. Let me talk about now your manifesto. So how are you proposing, based on this conversation, if you lower taxation, then how will you service the debt that you have? And what are some of the proposals that you'll bring forward to make sure that at least you still cushion other struggling sectors in regard to this, owing by your tax policy? First of all, Evans, do you know how much tax debt we have? There is no official figure. It is over 11 trillion as we speak. Well, what I'm trying to say is that debt needs a review because it's not the same. Forget about the guys talk about odious debt. Those people completely don't understand economics. There's nothing like odious debt in Kenya. Odious debt is a debt borrowed by illegitimate government. As an economist, there's a history. When Spain colonized the US, they borrowed money from Cuba to colonize the US. When US government was legitimate, they denied to pay the debt to Cuban government because it was borrowed by a Spanish government which was illegitimate. So all the debt borrowed by all these heads of state, when they were legitimately elected, is legitimate debt. There's no odious debt. I hear my brother Jim Wanjigi talking about it. I think he needs to go to school and understand the difference between odious debt and debt borrowed by thieves. So we need to do a debt review to confirm. And I can tell you, Evans, when I become president and I find that you borrowed money during this season, I'll put you in a room with a calculator to calculate how that money moved from wherever you borrowed to where it went. If you don't have it, you pay Kenya back the balance. Hakuna mambo ya kusema borrowing debt for what? Where did that money go to? If someone took money from JP Morgan and the money never reached Kenya, we cannot ask Kenya to vomit what it did not swallow. You can't. If your breakfast was not bread, you can't vomit bread. And we cannot be sitting here saying, oh, debt. Which debt? The people who took the money will pay back. And if they don't pay back, we'll take it back. And we don't need their permission to take back what belongs to Kenya. And that's very clear. Secondly, the issue of debt, I've told you, you add more taxpayers to the tax bracket when they are working, the deficit, budget deficit will be narrowed or zero. And then when they're borrowing money. Can you tell me that someone says they are borrowing a debt and is not paying a debt, but it is increasing? You tell me, how can you be paying and it is increasing? But Prof, it's fair to argue the reason why debt increases because
our revenue target, most of the time we don't meet the target. So for you to run a functional government, you must either borrow or source internally.
How many Kenyans live in this country who don't borrow and their budget does not make sense and they're living? Why do we want to think government is so special? You, in your income, do you have all the money you need? Sometimes you pass, you see issues, you just pass. Sometimes a child says, I want to tell him, Mommy, next month. Why for them it is now and is life or death? Let me tell you, my brother, before we had money to be borrowed from abroad, Kenyans were surviving. Let's go back to the life. What was your grandparents borrowing? Those times, who was giving debt? And did people not survive? When there's one cow that has milk, others don't have. People shared that cow. Why are we looking like this government must borrow to spend? I'm telling you, we'll run this country like a household. You know, a head of state should not look at Kenya as one unit. We have 12,005,000 households. How do they run? For you and your family, do you have all the money? Even when someone is sick, you do a fundraising. Do you borrow where? How many Kenyans can qualify to borrow? But the government qualifies to borrow on you. So this thing of saying that borrowing must be done, I disagree.
All right.
I was an economist in the European Central Bank. Even some people are denied to borrow.
Okay. Now we have very critical sectors like education, which is underfunded. We have healthcare. Now, talk to me about your proposals. How do you plan to fund this very critical sector that most of the times they have been either been underfunded or not given much attention that it deserves? So how will you fund this very critical sector, which is, for some, this is now the engine of our, not economy per se, but the engine of the future tomorrow. So we have the education sector, and you know the crisis that are that has for quite a while bedeviled the education sector. Lack of capitation, if there is, very few, not on time. So what's your proposal on this very key sector?
First of all, there is enough to fund education and to fund healthcare. But your typical politician wants to make you believe there is no money. But look at when they want to do something, they do it supersonic speed. Kindiki was announced at midnight to have been declared deputy president. By 10 a.m., they had spent 250 million in insulation, isn't it? Can you manage that yourself? You can't. So let us not lie that there's no money. When they want to do something, they do it with supersonic speed. When they don't want, they say there's no money. Let me tell you what, my brother, how much goes to education, and if you add education and healthcare together, it's not 1 trillion. But the budget is 4.9 trillion. As an economist, there's what you call fast charge. Fast charge means that when you collect money, where do you take that money first? As a husband, when you earn your salary, the first charge is pay children's school fees, pay rent, pay your debt if you need, isn't it? But for them, when they receive money, you hear somebody has a new chopper. You hear somebody has been allocated, I don't know, money to travel where.
So according to you, there is money.
There's enough money to run this economy. We have enough for everybody's need. We don't have enough for everybody's greed. So for being greedy, we don't have enough. Because their greed is bigger than Pacific Ocean, which is the largest ocean in the world. But for us, we just operate like Lake Victoria, isn't it? Or Lake Turkana. We can have enough. Let one cheat you that we don't have enough. I believe we have enough money if we can do priority spending. Also, we need to understand that the economy is choked by too much taxation. We have not enough foreign direct investment to come to the country to get jobs. It's just that the economic formula is wrong. You cannot use the wrong map to go to the wrong direction. If you want to go to Singapore, you cannot use the map going to Somalia. You cannot use a map that goes to Garissa. Their map is wrong. If you are waiting for them to arrive in Canaan, they'll not. They don't have an idea of how to arrive in this, what they call Canaan. But Fred Ogola is telling you, with the silver bullet, creating jobs, priority spending, then secondly, cutting down on government expenditure, then not going to State House after being sworn in. State House is going to be a monument. State House will become a research center for professors to do research there. State House will become a research and development phase for young people to do breakthrough in science, breakthrough in laboratory, breakthrough in healthcare. All these things we're putting on money is not necessary. Can you imagine with the SHA, we spend 101 billion and it's not working. The technology has been given to a foreigner to do. Yet Kenyans have no job. Do you know how much we spend on government fuel guzzlers? We have 1,850 fuel guzzlers, each of them being serviced in total Kenya at a cost of 300,000 per 2 weeks, which means we are blowing money to non-priority expenditure. So what I'm trying to say is they like to tell you there is no money. Just like a husband who spends time in the bar tells the wife how broke they are. But in the bar, everybody gets their round. At home, everybody is eating nothing. So we just have a father who eats first, then asks whether kids have eaten. A leader should eat last, not eat first. That's my view.
Your approach to corruption?
Corruption is very simple. When I become president, we have a technology called digital assets. We'll digitize everything. Everything will work on digital ledger. Transparency and accountability will be the order of the day. When you do tender, you float your tender, it's a digital wallet, digital ledger. Everyone can track it to the end. Right. We'll create a good supply chain management or value chain management that is trustable, whereby even you as president, you can't steal money because everything is being seen by Kenyans. Kenyans are being kept in the dark. So why darkness? Everything, there is no transparency. If you go to chapter 6 of the Constitution, it's very clear about transparency, it's about accountability, it's about ethics. So the only thing remaining is to make Kenyans know the 4.92 trillion which Ruto wants to collect in 2026, 2027, what will it do? All the accountability system from county government to the national government, are procurement systems clear? Are they transparent? Digital assets using blockchain technology, which I want young people to really invest their time, and I'll put money on young people to develop them so that they can trace you. If you go to a county, someone is tendering to build a classroom, let us know who has tendered, how much have they tendered, and we shall see that one in a visual manner. When you make everything visible, nothing happens. Do you know why most things happen at night? Because nothing is seen. But if daytime, people behave. So let Kenya be very transparent. Go to a country like Singapore, go to Japan, go to South Korea. Anything can be known by anybody.
All right.
And when that happens, all the liars, all the thieves will run away.
All right.
We never see night runners at night.
Okay. We have institutions tasked with the responsibility of handling corruption in Kenya. We have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission of Kenya that is known, or rather has been given that particular mandate by the Constitution to deal with matters corruption. In your own opinion, why do you think we still struggle with corruption in this country, despite the fact that we have institutions to deal with such cases?
Evans will lack leadership. The day we shall have the right person in the head of state, or if you call it State House, that's the day the right thing being done. But because we have the wrong person in that office, there is no day it will be done. Let me take you here. When I become president, EACC will be disbanded by one signature. In fact, I've prepared 12 executive orders. From swearing in, I'll go sign them so that they can be executed. Executive orders. EACC approves everybody, from MCA to senator, to governor, to MP, to PSS, to heads of parastatal. Even the president are passed by EACC. If they are the one passing these people, why do they again pretend to investigate them? So EACC must be disbanded with immediate effect, because it is a washing machine for corruption. Anybody who is corrupt goes there, they are investigated, then they are again passed. It must cease to exist. They are talking about Singapore. Do you have EACC in Singapore? Do you have in Japan? It's been put there to make you feel things are happening. Do you know why EACC is only 200 meters from State House? Because it's a washing machine that washes State House when they steal money. Anybody arrested ever should go to the police station just like anybody else. Why should a governor who has stolen 2 billion go sit in EACC with a cup of tea in a sofa set being asked how they have stolen. Yet for you, even if they suspect you stole a chicken, you are locked in a cell. Why are some special Kenyans and some are not so special? There are no sacred cows. We have DCI, investigate when you are in the cell. They tell you, oh, we can't prosecute. You don't want to prosecute. Why should you be put there when you can't do anything? So according to me, those institutions are there as smoke screens. Even if you want to ask me others, there are several others which are not independent, which cannot deliver. Go to IPRA. IPRA wakes up and adds fuel at will. IPRA was formed to lower the cost of energy. That's why they were formed, nothing else. Go to their mandate. They can't do their mandate, but we continue giving them a budget. Actually, they are adding cost of fuel because some levy goes to them. It's called fuel regulatory levy. They're adding the cost of fuel into the ecosystem. Without ESCC, and I want to tell you, my brother, let me use data. ESCC was formed in 2010. They have operated for 15 years. They have a budget of 3.9 billion per year. If you multiply by 15, that is 58.9 billion they have consumed, isn't it? But they have recovered only 18 billion in the process. So why do you run such an economy where you spend 58.9 billion to recover 18 billion? Yet we need to recover something like 7.6 trillion of theft. And I want to go direct. Under the first president, we lost 250 billion to corruption. The second president, in 10 years, we lost 1.2 trillion, and I have put that petition in Senate. The third president, that happens to be Kibaki, we lost 610 billion. The fourth president, Uhuru Kenyatta, it was 608 billion. The current president, we have lost 3.7 trillion in corruption. When you add that together, that's the money we need to recover. How can you recover 28 billion in 15 years, yet we need to recover 7.6 trillion? So those institutions are irrelevant. They're just cost to Kenyans. We want you to produce what you are supposed to do. If you're a teacher, teach. If you're a professor, profess. If you're a prophet, prophesize. You cannot be there as a small screen, only appointed by people. And I don't like these things appointing bishops to chair these commissions. Mother Teresa was holy, but she was not made a central bank manager. She was preaching your faith. As a retired bishop, go and work on people's faith. Let us appoint professionals. And as president, we shall practice meritocracy, nothing like political patronage. And that's why I want Kenyans to appoint me so that I work for them, don't work for any other system.
What do you think, probably, why do you think you'll be different from the rest? Because successful governments have come and gone. The problems still exist. We have a very robust constitution that if we follow, things will run smoothly without any political interference or influence. What would make you different?
What makes me different is that I have values. They don't. What makes me different is that I'm a professional. Without anything else, if the current president is not president, what will he be doing? What did he do before? He was never a teacher. Moi was a teacher at least, isn't it? Kibaki was an economist before coming to government. For him, tell me what he did apart from politics. He began his first career as a politician, and he's going to end it as a politician. I am a professional. I've trained more than 1 million executives in Strathmore University. I have made 37 CEOs with my own coaching, mentoring, and those very CEOs can come and work in government to offer technocratical support. For them, their friends are politicians, looters, and thieves.
All right.
For me, my friends are professionals. So tell me who is your friend, and I'll tell you who you are.
All right.
So who is their friend? Murderers, isn't it?
Okay.
Thieves, isn't it? Brokers. They call them also, they also call them what? Let's say misleaders, isn't it? Cartels. So if your friends are cartels, what do you offer? You offer cartel government. When you're a professional, who are your friends? Professionals. Who works in your government? Professionals. So that's what I'm trying to see. There's a big difference between you and them, like day and night.
All right, even as we wind up, how do you fancy your chances? And of course, there is, Kenya is a very tribal nation, especially the vote based on tribal line. So, in your quest to become the 6th president of the Republic of Kenya, are you planning to go out and seek the support of others like, like-minded people like you? Are you planning to maybe in the future to form a coalition with others, or you are going it alone?
First of all, before you go to coalition, and I want to say clearly, coalitions are formed from the point of weakness. Weakness because there's something you don't have, then you bring somebody to have. So first of all, that's why coalitions are being formed. But before I think about whom I want to work with, Kenyans want to know, who is Fred Ogola? Mm-hmm. What can he do? What is identity? So I don't want to start working with wolves so that they try to separate between the wolves and the sheep. So I want to be the shepherd of this country, the shepherd of the sheep. So I should walk with sheep, and then I should smell like the sheep. I should look like the sheep and sleep with the sheep. So for now, I'm asking Kenyans, do you want me to mix with the wolves to serve you, or do you want me to go to you directly as sheep? And Evans, let me tell you this. We have always mobilized on tribal grounds, yet the Kenyan problem is not tribal. We have done research and found that when people are looking for where to live, they don't ask which tribe lives there. When you're looking for a school for your children, do you look for the tribe that goes there? How comes in politics then we say, oh, which tribe can I work with? I can tell you, Ogola 27 is uniting factor based on economic mobilization, not political or tribal mobilization. So anybody who believes that the Kenyan problem is economic and believes on the silver bullet of 100,000 jobs per county, if you go to the sub-county, you can actually divide by saying, I did research and found that those are 3,000 jobs per ward. That person is welcome to work with because he's like-minded. But I want to make coalition of convenience because I want to win power, because that was happened. Kibaki went for a coalition of convenience. When he came in, the interests were too many. Mm-hmm. But I'm not saying I can't work with anybody, mm-hmm, because I'm not running a one-man show.
All right.
As we speak, there are 7 political parties working with LDP on the background, forming a coalition. As we speak, we are setting up a team which will make some of the key decisions to do with coalition building. Mm-hmm. This is our, where we are now is our command center. We'll start bringing different teams to work on this. So some questions are supposed to come later. Mm-hmm. My work is to offer vision, offer leadership, and then when I'm the captain of the ship will have other crews that will help us to land at the shore. But my dream is that we have already painted the picture. We have the silver bullet. We'll have many people join us. This is a tree that has so many foods. It won't lack birds to come on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Professor Fred Ogola, thank you so much for making time.
Pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.